How's it going, everyone? My name is RJ, and believe it or not, we're nearing a year now since the release of the iPhone 13 lineup. I've been using the iPhone 13 Pro as my daily phone alongside the iPhone 13 mini, and I've gathered a lot of thoughts over the course of the year. So in this video, I'll be helping you guys decide whether or not buying an iPhone 13 Pro right now is the best bang for your buck, or if you should spend the extra money and go for the upcoming iPhone 14 Pro. Make sure you do stick around till the end of the video because I'll be going over all the major changes coming to the iPhone 14 Pro, and then you can decide for yourself if upgrading this year is a worthwhile investment or not. The iPhone 13 Pro, in my opinion, is one of the best looking phones currently available on the market. This Sierra Blue is stunning from any angle, and I have no doubt in my mind that this design will age incredibly well over time. In the hands, the 13 Pro is a heavy phone, especially when you compare it alongside a phone like the 13 mini. But the weight is what gives the phone that premium feel. It feels like a phone truly worth the hefty price tag. I like to tell people the 13 Pro is the perfect in-between smartphone. It's not overwhelmingly big like the 6.7-inch iPhone 13 Pro Max, but at the same time, it's not too small like the 13 mini. Reaching across and atop the 6.1-inch display is feasible, and the display is not too small where you need to strain your eyes in order to read text on the screen. We'll talk a bit more about this incredible display in a little bit, but I do want to go over something that's really important before buying a used iPhone 13 Pro, and that, my friends, is the battery life. Battery life on the 13 Pro used to be top tier. This, alongside the 13 Pro Max, was easily the battery king. I was easily able to get through an entire days of use with this 3000 mAh battery, easily averaging around 7 to 9 hours of screen on time on a 5G network. But quite recently, within the past 2 months or so, the battery life has taken a big hit. I've started to notice the poor screen on times ever since I upgraded to iOS 15.5. Since then, the battery life has been terrible. I'm currently on iOS 15.6 and it hasn't gotten any better. These days, I'm only averaging around 3 to 5 hours of screen on time, so something is definitely off here. After about almost a year of usage, my 13 Pro is sitting at 93% battery health, which isn't the greatest, but it's also not that bad. I do only charge my iPhone on a wireless charger, either using MagSafe or the wireless charger in my car, and I have noticed that the phone does tend to overheat while being wirelessly charged. This could be a significant reason why I've lost 7% of my overall battery health instead of say like 3 or 4%. I would highly recommend, if you're in the market for a used iPhone, always go with one with battery health over 95%. Anything less than that and you could be looking at a battery replacement sometime in the near future, which will run you around $70 at the Apple Store. Charging speeds by 2022 standards is what I would consider to be slow. The iPhone 13 Pro is capable of wired charging speeds of 20 watts and wireless charging speeds of 15 watts. On a wired connection, the 13 Pro goes from 0 to 100% in about 90 minutes, which to me is way too slow for 2022 standards. The display on the iPhone 13 Pro is right up there with Samsung flagship devices. The iPhone 13 Pro is rocking a 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR display with a 120Hz refresh rate. The variable refresh rate on this phone is fantastic. When a higher refresh rate isn't required, the phone will reduce the hertz all the way down to 10 Hz. Not too many apps use 120 Hz on an iPhone. It's mostly noticeable on stock Apple apps and while scrolling through the settings. No matter what though, the iPhone 13 Pro always feels snappy and smooth. I haven't experienced a single frame freeze or a jitter in my 1 year with this device. That's how well optimized Apple makes their smartphones. This display is fantastic. Yes, there is a notch and sometimes it does bother me, especially when I'm watching content in landscape orientation. But if your brain is capable of blocking out that notch entirely, then you should have no issues with the display whatsoever. It's colorful, it's vibrant, and it peaks at a brightness of 1200 nits. I've had no issues with the display in outdoor conditions. Overall, a fantastic panel. You will genuinely love the display on this iPhone. The A15 Bionic chipset found inside the iPhone 13 Pro is an absolute beast. This phone is going to age really well over time if the battery can keep up. The raw speed and the efficiency of the A15 is fantastic. All my apps on my iPhone are always open. I never have to close my apps. The 13 Pro has no issues whatsoever with RAM management, so performance on the iPhone 13 Pro is top notch. No matter what it is that I'm doing on my phone, the iPhone 13 Pro has got me. I often do edit raw photos captured on my Canon EOS R directly on my iPhone 13 Pro using Lightroom, and I can directly export hundreds of photos from Lightroom to my camera roll after the edits with no performance issues whatsoever, because Lightroom does often crash for me on some of my Android devices. I have noticed though that sometimes when I try to launch the camera app directly from the lock screen, the phone does bug out and shows me a black screen. I thought that this would get ironed out through software updates, but it's been almost about a year now and it's still there. And to me that's problematic because sometimes you just want to launch your camera app and take a quick photo. And to have my camera bug out like that and miss that moment is pretty annoying. Something else to keep an eye on is reception issues. Ever since I got this phone, my reception signals haven't been the best. I'm only able to get around 2 or 3 bars most of the time. I mean, this doesn't affect phone calls in particular, but when I'm using a 5G network to browse the web, I do notice web pages take forever to load. And initially I figured that this was an issue with my service provider, but no, when I use an Android device, my signal is totally fine. So reception is something to keep an eye on and be cognizant of. I always encourage people to buy a used iPhone that's either 1 or 2 years old, because Apple does an excellent job of providing software updates for many years. With the 13 Pro, you're looking at around 6 years of software updates. If you think about it, a used iPhone 13 Pro in immaculate condition with 6 years of software updates, it's an absolute steal. Especially if you could find one for around 850 to 1,000 Canadian dollars. That, my friends, is an absolute bargain. If you are looking to buy the best overall camera system on a smartphone, then the iPhone 13 Pro is your best bet. Now, I say overall because in my opinion, this phone doesn't give you the best still images found on a smartphone in 2022. That title goes to the Pixel 6 Pro. But versatility wise, when you're talking about really good still images plus video capabilities, the iPhone 13 Pro takes the crown. The iPhone 13 Pro comes equipped with a 12 megapixel triple rear camera setup. The primary wide angle lens this year lets in 2.2 times more light than the 12 Pro, making it the ideal lens for low light shots. Overall, I would say the primary wide lens is a consistent shooter with virtually next to no shutter lag. These pictures look very natural and true to life. There is a subtle vibrance and sharpness to these images without the processing overdoing the highlights and the saturation. The ultra-wide lens this year also has a lower f-stop, which does mean the ultra-wide lens lets in more light. There is no more noticeable distortion along the edges, which to me was kind of an issue on the 12 Pro. Now, the telephoto lens is not a lens I resort to too often, mostly because I don't usually find myself in situations where I need to use the telephoto, but it is a capable performer in most scenarios. The video capabilities of the iPhone 13 Pro is so damn good. I use the stock camera app to record some of my YouTube videos, and if you've ever watched one of my day in the life videos, they're entirely shot on the iPhone 13 Pro in 4K straight from the stock app. And the best part is no one in the comments is complaining about the video quality. I love it because it's so much easier to record content directly from your phone than on a 5-pound mirrorless camera. If you want to start creating content for TikTok or YouTube, then just start with the iPhone 13 Pro and upgrade over time as your following does grow. You will not regret picking up the iPhone 13 Pro for video quality. I can guarantee you that. Now for the fun part. Let's compare all of the upcoming confirmed changes to the iPhone 14 Pro, and let's see if you guys should wait for the iPhone 14 Pro or pick up the iPhone 13 Pro on a heavy discount. So here are 3 main changes you should know about coming to the iPhone 14 Pro. Starting off with the design. It's all but been confirmed the iPhone 14 Pro will feature a redesign. Not with the body itself, but on the display the notch will finally be going away. And it's being replaced with this sort of strange looking pill and hole punch cutout. In my opinion, this doesn't look too appealing. Apple should have just stuck with the notch. Speaking of the display, the bezels are getting thinner, which is always nice to see. Specifically for the 14 Pro variants, there will be an always on display. Now, in my opinion, all iPhones should be getting an always on display, but for now it's only available on the Pro variants. And finally, Apple will be upgrading the primary wide camera lens this year from a 12 megapixel lens to a 48 megapixel lens, which in theory should give the iPhone 14 Pro a huge camera boost over the 13 Pro. There's also confirmation that the iPhone 14 Pro will be able to record in 8K, which is absolutely insane. We already know iPhones are the king of videography, so this year they're about to get a whole lot better. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention, there will be a price hike this year for all of the iPhone 14 models. We don't know exactly by how much, but I'm guessing at least $100 price bump. Aside from that though, everything else will pretty much remain the same as it is on the 13 Pro. If you believe thinner bezels, a better camera, and no more notch is a worthwhile upgrade from the iPhone 13 Pro, then by all means go for the iPhone 14 Pro, you will not be disappointed. But I'm telling you guys right now, a used iPhone 13 Pro will be an absolute steal once the iPhone 14 Pro does come out. So be on the lookout in the secondhand market because a lot of iPhone users will be desperate to get rid of their 13 Pro and upgrade. If you made it till the end of the video, drop a peach emoji down in the comments below so I know exactly who you guys are. And make sure to subscribe to the channel because a lot of iPhone 14 content is coming your way. Thank you so much for watching and don't forget to flex with your tech.